At 5 a.m. on September 20th, 2009, Gerard O'Hara arrived at Carlow Garda Station. Screaming, crying, pulling his hair, he handed a letter to the Garda on duty. It stated, "I've done a terrible thing to Lisa." Lisa Doyle was born on the 24th of April 1985 into a well-known family in Bagnallstown in County Carlow. She had three sisters and a brother and was the baby of the family. She was the second cousin of newsreader Anne Doyle. In her younger years, Lisa was an athlete. She loved poetry. Her family described her as the comic of the family. She was kind, caring, always had time for people. She was also described as, not necessarily maybe religious, but spiritual. In fact, in fifth class, when she was 11, her teacher actually asked would she accompany her on a trip to Lourdes for sick children, and would ask Lisa would she would accompany her to help out. Obviously, like, this was a big thing to be asked, and it's a lot of responsibility. So it just showed the type of girl Lisa was, and she would continue to be this type of woman when she grew up. In 2002, when Lisa was 18, her mother died in her sleep from sudden adult death syndrome. She died in her sleep. This obviously affected the family tremendously, and Lisa's sister Angela was living with Lisa at the time in Dublin, and Angela said that Lisa was, a strength to her, that they really helped each other get through it, and that Lisa, even for only being 18, still a child essentially, really helped her to get through it. Lisa she had been a part-time model. She also studied hair and beauty, and then went on to be a supervisor in Argos, which she loved, and everybody there seems to love her. In 2002, on a night out with her sister Catherine in Loughlin Bridge, which is where they were staying in Carlow at the time, she was introduced to Gerard O'Hara. The two hit it off, but Lisa, obviously, still grieving her mother and was still young, wasn't looking for anything. And the same could be said for Jer. He was just out of a long-term relationship with an engagement, so he was only newly single as well. So they got on well that night. As far as I know, they kissed, and that was that. Almost 2 years later, they met again on a night out and began a relationship. Gerard O'Hara was a bit older. He was actually 6 years older, so by this point he was about 26. He was from Fina in Carlow, and he was described as quiet, but nice, smart. He was a scaffolder by trade. Their relationship pretty soon became, serious. They moved in together. They actually moved into one home, and shortly after this moved out of this. They didn't like it. Didn't fit well for them. This was in Carlow. They moved to another home that they actually really liked, that they were renting, and unfortunately, in 2008 here there was a recession, so a lot of people in the construction industry lost their jobs, and so Jer lost his job, and they couldn't afford the place anymore. So they moved around a little bit. They actually stayed with his parents for a while, and they stayed with her father for a while. And from what I can tell, they were on the council list for a home. In November 2007, Jer proposed to Lisa, so they were delighted, and they had planned to get married on the 22nd of June 2010. In and around September 2009, the couple moved to Loughlin Bridge, and they were living nearby to Catherine, Lisa's sister. On Saturday, the 19th of September, Lisa and her fiance Jer went for a night out with Lisa's sister Catherine and her partner Martin. CCTV would show Lisa and Jer holding hands and laughing while walking to the pub in Loughlin. While here, it was said that Jer was actually a bit anxious. He'd be asking where Lisa was every time she'd go to the toilet or to talk to someone. A couple that they had been speaking to, who had gotten married abroad, said that they were acting, just like any other happy couple that were looking forward to the future. They were commenting on, what a good idea it is to get married abroad, that you could get married abroad and then come back and have a party. and they were talking about, you know, their own plans for their own marriage the following summer. At around 1 a.m., the two couples, went to get takeaway, and then they headed home. According to Ger, the couple got ready and went to bed. Lisa was lying with her back to him. Ger placed his left arm around Lisa's neck and with his right arm tightened his grip. He would later tell Gardai that she could not scream or cry out, but said his name faintly. He then reached down to his shoe, pulled out the shoelace, and again strangled Lisa. After, Gerard dressed Lisa's body, covered her with the duvet, and left the house. He drove to Carlow town. He went to a petrol station. He got a drink, chewing gum, and a notebook and pen. He then sat in his car and wrote a letter with his name and address in the top right hand corner, and then explained what he had just done. He then arrived at the Garda Station at 5 a.m. Gardai and emergency services arrived at 6 a.m. at 4 High Street and found the lifeless body of Lisa in the upstairs bedroom under the duvet. Lisa was just 24 years old. Back in the Garda Station, Ger wanted to be put into a cell. He was. And when taking off his shoes, he pointed to the right one and told the Gardai that this was what he used to strangle Lisa. In the letter, 31-year-old Ger said that he could never explain why he did what he did because he didn't know why he did what he did. He said that once or twice a year he would get the urge to strangle, and that the urge had just overcome him. He said that he would get dark thoughts when drinking, and he said that he always knew that he would do something bad to someone someday. This was obviously a huge shock to the community in general, but obviously to the two families involved. Lisa's family never believed that she was in danger. They never thought, that Ger was hurting her or anything like that. Her sister Angela would say that, she was very close to Lisa, that Lisa would have told her if he was hurting her or doing something like that, and that she would tell them that she was very happy with him and that he was always very good to her. But in the aftermath of all this, some instances did come out, describing Ger's behaviour. Angela wrote a book called Loving Lisa, and in it she would talk about her own experiences, other experiences that the rest of the family had with Ger, and even colleagues of Lisa would come forward about experiences with Ger. So in no particular order, I'm just going to list a couple of them just to give some context to what has happened. After meeting Ger, Lisa gave up modelling, and Angela believed that, even though Lisa didn't say it, that Ger was what influenced this decision. Lisa's colleagues came forward. One of them said that they had dropped her home and that she was kind of a bit anxious. She didn't want to get dropped, to the door. And that from that time onwards, Ger always dropped her off and always picked her up, and that he would arrive an hour early to pick her up from the store and then would just hang around the store for the hour. Another colleague said that she had invited Lisa into her house, up to her room, let's say, to show her something, and that Ger had followed them up, and that they didn't know that he was following them up, and that when they were in the room, they just kind of turned around and he was just sitting on the bed waiting for them, and that she made a joke. The friend made a joke, kind of something about, Ger, you'd make a great stalker. It is said that one time Ger wouldn't give her a lift to one of the nephew's birthday parties, and so she said, that she couldn't come, and the reason he wasn't giving her a lift was because he was watching a football match. So the family, would have been disgruntled by that, and one of them went to get her and then bring her back and then drop her back again. The week before Lisa's death, Angela had visited her for the first time in her home, because she was only there a couple of weeks at this point, and was showing her around the house and stuff like that. And after a while, they decided to leave the house and head up to visit someone. Gerard hadn't been home, like when Angela was visiting. And so when they were walking back, Lisa said, "Oh, I hope Gerard's home, because I don't have a key, so otherwise we'll be waiting outside." And Angela was kind of, like, what do you mean you don't have a key to your own house? And she was kind of saying, like, so if Gerard's out and you decide to leave, you're locked out then until he comes back, kind of. So I think they were thinking this was kind of a way to discourage her from, leaving when Gerard wasn't around. The family said that Gerard was quiet, and but quiet to the point of like making people uncomfortable. Like they'd be sitting in their kitchen, and like Lisa and whoever else was there would be talking, but that Gerard would just sit there quietly. He might smirk, he might make a little comment or something, but that was it. And other than that, he would just sit there, and that they would just feel uncomfortable by this. But apparently, when they would, bring this up to Lisa, she would kind of just laugh it off and kind of say either at one point apparently she blamed the fact that he was giving up smoking. So she was saying, oh, like he's moody because he's trying to quit smoking. And apparently she said once, like, I'm just so used to his behaviour, I don't notice it. Another instance was Elisa and her brother Michael and his partner used to go swimming once a week, let's say. And Michael drove, so Michael would obviously say he would drive them all, but Gerard would insist on driving them. So he would like go pick Michael up and his girlfriend or whatever, and then drive them to the leisure centre, wait outside for the hour or so, and then drop Michael and his girlfriend back, and then go home. And so, like, obviously, it just made more sense for Michael to do it, but they didn't. And Angela explains in her book that Michael wasn't the type, to badmouth people or to talk about people. So he just, because they were so used to how Gerard was, he just put it down to that, and he didn't bring it up with anybody because he would, he just didn't do that. As I said before, they had lived for a little while in Gerard's parents' house, and then they lived for a while, for 6 months, with Lisa's dad. And in Angela's book, she says that when Lisa was going to work, Gerard wasn't working at this point, and when Lisa would be going to work, Gerard would sit in the room until she came home. So he wouldn't go out. He would just sit there. He wouldn't go down and like socialise with the dad or watch telly with the dad or anything. The dad would offer, cups of tea and dinner and stuff, and he would just say no thanks. So he was just sitting in the room for 7, 8, 9 hours until Lisa came home. And then finally, I'll just leave this one. When they moved to Lachlan Bridge and were literally only a couple of minutes walk from Lisa's sister Catherine, they didn't tell any of the family. And apparently they were there for like a week before it came up, and they drove to Catherine's house for like a barbecue or something. Instead of walking, they drove, and then like not even straight away told them, like halfway through the barbecue, then casually brought it up, like, yeah, like we're living around the corner, like. And so obviously none of the family understood why you would not tell them that. You're moving closer to home, why wouldn't you be excited to tell people that? And I think it's kind of more looking back, in hindsight, they think, these are little things that Gerard would have done, that he obviously convinced her somehow not to tell her family, and all these little like tidbits like of manipulation and controlling. Gerard was brought to Castlecomer District Court on Monday, the 21st, and remanded to Cloverhill Prison until the trial. Lisa's funeral was held on Thursday, the 24th, in Bagnallstown, and there was a guard of honour by her colleagues in Argos. So, in Angela's book, there's just another few bits that she mentions that I just want to bring up, let you know about, and you can make your own conclusions from them. I said that Gerard and Lisa moved around a lot, or had moved a few times, and according to Angela, the reason that they didn't stay in the house that they had first moved into together was because Lisa didn't like it, because she was freaked out and stuff. And apparently one of the reasons she was freaked out was she was finding creepy things, like she was finding letters or notes. Angela wasn't entirely sure what Lisa meant by this. It was kind of hearsay. She heard it. Lisa had told Michael, as far as I know, and then Michael told Angela. But from what she understood, they were like, she said it was like suicide letters, or like, letters by a depressed person. And I think they kind of put it down to like like a ghostly kind of thing. I think that's the impression I was getting in the book, that it was, she was creeped out because like she thought the place was haunted or something. But I was wondering, like, was Jer writing these maybe not to show Lisa, and Lisa just happened to find them and got freaked out. Maybe didn't want to acknowledge that they could have been by Jer, but maybe I don't know, maybe he didn't even wasn't writing them as suicide letters, but maybe he was writing down his thoughts and either left them out to freak Lisa out, and maybe that was part of manipulation or something, or maybe he didn't mean for her to find them and he was writing down thoughts. Because I mean, you can ghost all you want or whatever, but I just think to tie it in with what happened then and how his mindset must have been, I feel like if there was stuff written, these dark letters or notes written in the house, he wrote them. That's what I would think. It is believed, obviously, because Jer says it, that Lisa was strangled in bed. They were going to sleep and Lisa was strangled in bed. They could have even been intimate that night. And it is said that he says that he fully dressed her, so that would kind of imply that either she was either naked in her underwear or in maybe kind of little pajamas or something, and that he fully dressed her. And then I don't even know, is that supposed to be like a sign of remorse, that you're dressing her to, like, either to protect her modesty or keep her warm or something, and then covering up with the duvet. I mean, I know they do say stuff like that, like after they kind of usually say that people who the TV crime shows say that when someone kills someone, if after they're kind of, if they're buried in like in a kind of, not a loving way, but if they're buried in a nice way where maybe they're kept clean and they're covered with a blanket or something like that, they normally say that means that someone knew them, the person who killed them knew them, and that this was kind of like a sign of remorse because it's a sign of like caring for them afterwards. The house that they were staying in was obviously, it was rented, so obviously all the stuff had to be cleared out and like kind of sharpish. So Angela and her brother and his brother's girlfriend went to clear out the house of Angela's stuff, or of Lisa's stuff, sorry. A couple of things. She said that on the nightstand on the locker was Lisa's engagement ring. And in the book, like, she's talking about how Lisa loved this, and that people would say, like, even work would kind of slag her because she'd be, polishing it all the time and stuff like that. And so kind of my thought was then, so why wasn't she wearing it when she went to bed that night? Yeah, maybe I'm not engaged. Maybe people take their rings off and stuff like that, but I would have thought that wasn't a thing you would do. I thought you would sleep with that. So then why was it not on her? Angela then said that in the room when she went in, there was a small suitcase that had some of like Lisa's favourite clothes in it, and she just thought it was odd because obviously, I mean, like, you could still be unpacking after 2 weeks or whatever, fair enough, but she just kind of, she mentioned it and thought, she seemed to think it was odd in the book, and I would think it's odd, especially like your favourite clothes, because like, why, if they're your clothes that you're going to wear a lot or whatever, why wouldn't you have taken them out? I don't know. Could just be a simple thing. And then just kind of another thing in this thought process, Lisa's sister Jane had to identify her body, and Angela would say in the book that Jane told her that Lisa still had her eye makeup on, her, like, the glitter from her eye makeup was still on, and Angela says that this is very odd because Lisa done, the beauty course, she knew how important it was to take your makeup off at night, and that she would kind of, hound the rest of them, the other girls, into doing this, like, that it'll age your skin if you don't take it off. And but Angela said that Lisa would have taken her makeup off religiously, and so she kind of questions that in the book, like, why didn't she take her makeup off before going to bed? What happened to not get to do that? So I don't know, there's kind of a few little pieces that kind of could imply that something else happened before they went to bed, or maybe that she hadn't actually died in bed. I don't know. But why, like, he admitted to it, so why would you lie about a certain fact? I'm not sure. Jer admitted that he had tried to kill someone before. He said that 4 or 5 years ago, on a one night stand on a one night stand, that he had tried to strangle the girl and that she was strong enough though that she was able to fight him off. When I heard 4 or 5 years ago, because he didn't know 4 or 5 years ago, when I heard this, I thought, so if it was, he was with Lisa 4.5 years, let's say. So if it was 5 years ago, it was just before he met Lisa, and if it was 4 years ago, he was with Lisa. And this could just be, again, it's just my wild imagination, might not actually be the case, but I was wondering kind of firstly, I suppose, like, I think I was just kind of thinking, God, like, I wonder, did that girl come forward, when this was out there then? Would you come forward? Would you, not that would remember, but would you tie it to being him? I think you would. Like, after you see him anyway, especially if you read that and then you see him, you'd be like, yeah, that was the guy I was with. Like, that's the guy who tried to kill me. But it doesn't say anybody like that came forward. In Angela's book, she says that near the beginning of Lisa and Jared's relationship, Jared booked a 2-week holiday to go away to the Costa del Sol, and at the same time, Angela had booked a week for her and Lisa to go to Turkey. So I think they kind of went at the same time. The agreement apparently was that after Lisa had landed and all that, she would then call Jared, because they were going to do like a call every day. But by the time they got in and all that, they were just, they were tired and they were hungry. They just went to get food and they went to bed. And so the next day she tried to call him and his phone was off. And apparently his phone was off for three days. And finally, after getting through to him on 3 days, then he was basically saying, like, he was being a dick, basically saying, like, oh yeah, like, having a great time. Me and the lads are here with a few girls from England, blah, blah, blah. All this kind of, obviously to try and make her jealous, I'd say, because she hadn't called him that day, which ties back into the whole, manipulation and all that. But when Lisa got home, so Lisa should have gotten home, and then Jer shouldn't have been coming home for another nearly a week. But when she got home, a couple of days later, she rang Angela, upset because Jer had come home a week early. He had cut his trip short a week and hadn't told Lisa, and she just found out off someone else after 3 days. So there was this whole thing, and obviously Lisa tried to push, like, why did you come home a week early? Why didn't you tell me? And so he just ended things with her. He just broke it off. And I think a couple of weeks later, then they went out again on a night outside each other, and he got her back. And Angela was really very much like, you need to find out, was he with someone else, was he, this kind of thing. And she said no, that he explained to me then that he had ran out of money and he came home. So just in my head, I kind of just, again, wild imagination, what if the time he strangled someone wasn't here in Ireland? What if it was when he was over in the Costa del Sol, and he done it to a girl that he went home with one of the nights, like that, strangled her, she got away. The urge came over him, he tried to strangle her, she got away, and like, he's like, feck, I need to get home, like, I need to get out before something happens here. And then, like, realistically, if he flies home, what are the chances of that girl being able to report it? If you don't have a lot of information about the person, they don't even live in the country, you don't even live in the country. And so that could be why it never even came up then, the previous girl that he strangled. And then it could have been a case of, like, when Lisa was kind of questioning him, he was like, just end things, it's simpler, and then obviously then kind of get it back and just blame it on money. Now again, maybe he did just run out of money, a week early, but like running out of money a week early. Jez's trial was on the 5th of October 2010, less than 4 months after him and Lisa should have been getting married. He pled guilty, which obviously in a way, spared the family a lot of time in court, a lot of, dragging things through court and stuff like that. The year before, at the first court hearing, a psychiatric assessment had been ordered, and this was granted, but no sources mention this in the court, and maybe because he just pled guilty, they kind of just didn't deal with it after, and maybe they just realised, no, he's not mad, he's a killer. The court heard that Lisa had died from asphyxiation from a mechanical compression to the neck, which was obviously the shoelace. In a brief statement, Gerard said that he regretted the heartbreak that he caused Lisa's family, that he let them down, and that he wished there was some way that he could take it all back. When he was being interviewed, like obviously he was asked, like why did you do it? Why did you kill her? And his answer to that was always, if I knew why, I wouldn't be in this mess right now. In the letter, Gerard said that he loved Lisa with all his heart and that she deserved better. When the police asked if after the act he had tried to resuscitate her or, to try to do anything, Gerard said he didn't know any first aid. This whole thing kind of bothers me because obviously all the cases bother me, but it was such a, like, there was no fight, there was no domestic disturbance or anything. It was, if we're going by his words anyway, it was just simply lying in bed, he put his arm around her and strangled her. He just got the urge to kill his fiancée and just killed her, just like that. Like something that is such a intimate and vulnerable position, to have someone's arm around you, like your automatic response to that is to cuddle into it, like. And for him to offer this intimate, vulnerable gesture and twist it in the deadliest way you can, like the case is either two things. Maybe there was some sort of fight and he killed her. Or to me, the scarier option is like what he says. He was just lying in bed with the person he loves, and the urge that he gets every so often to kill, that he did not seek any help for, even though he said he knew that he was going to do this one day to someone, whether it was Lisa or to another person, and that urge just took over, and that Lisa lost her life because of it. Gerard has now served 11 years, including the time when he was on remand. So he is 42-ish, and most likely he will be out before he is 50, because in Ireland, life does not mean life. Like in America, life means you get put away at 20 for life. You're in there till you die at 100. Here it's not. Here, like he would have already been up for a review or parole or whatever, because I think that happens kind of nearly at around 10 years or something. So yeah, so he'll probably be out before he's 50. I'm hoping that the fact that he says that he has these urges, that will, influence them not letting him out. But otherwise he's out, and if he's out and he has those urges and he hasn't gotten any help for it, then he's a danger. The week before Lisa died, when Angela had gone to visit her to see the home, Angela said, the house was big and old, and and asked Lisa, God, like, would you not be scared here at night now, like? And Lisa said, so why would I be scared? I have him to protect me. So that is the tragic story of Lisa Doyle and her fiance / murderer. So thank you for watching and listening, and we will hopefully see you in the next video. Thanks.